I have built so many things with tutorials. I'll follow it. I'm like, oh, this is cool. And I'll tweak this and I'll tweak that. But you really don't know like what you're doing until you've solved a problem that is meaningful to you.
Hello and welcome to the PyBites podcast, where we talk about Python, career, and mindset. We're your hosts. I'm Julian Sequeira.
And I am Bob Beldebos. If you're looking to improve your Python, your career, and learn the mindset for success, this is the podcast for you. Let's get started. Hello and welcome back to the PyBites podcast. This is a very special episode. I'm Bob Beldebos and I'm here with Charles Carrière. Charles, how are you doing?
I'm great. Nice to see you, Bob.
Yeah, it's great to have you here. So for the audience, Charles is a Python developer currently in the PDM program, and he's also an entrepreneur. So I think we have quite a few things to digest and to dive into. But first of all, how are you doing today?
I'm feeling good. It's a good morning here in New Orleans.
New Orleans, you are, right? Yeah. So it's my afternoon, it's your morning, and let's get started. So got a couple of questions, 7 or so. Yeah. And again, we're going to talk about your coding journey, your PDM journey, and entrepreneurship. So to kick it off then, how did you get into coding and Python?
You know, I got into coding really as a hobby, and looking back on it, I've actually been doing this for, I guess to me, it's a long time. So in my previous career in finance, I signed up for a data camp courses doing data analysis and machine learning just because I was interested in it. And that was probably in 2016 or so. In 2017, I left my career in finance where I'd spent 20 plus years and spent 6 months as an apprentice at a local software development shop. My goal was to learn software, to learn how to program, because I'd always been fascinated with it, really enjoyed it, when I've tinkered around with it. But, life, job, 4 kids got in the way. This shop they were an Elixir and React shop. And while I thought Elixir was really cool, I really didn't like JavaScript because there were always about 6 different ways to do the exact same thing, which really frustrated me. But anyway, I ended up going there to learn how to code and ended up being a product manager for a large oil and gas project because I had domain expertise in it. So it taught me a ton about project scoping, agile development, managing sprints. And I say that, I really still lean on those skills when I write software. I can write a good, given when then ticket. And when I'm stuck on a big problem, I'll revert back to that to just sort of break it up into smaller pieces. But I've also played around with various Raspberry Pi projects using CircuitPython, which I have a good time with. But it was really a hobby for about 6 or 8 years, and then in the last couple of years I've really tried to lean into it, especially with the PDM program.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll touch upon that more specifically what you're working on. But so funny enough, you're also coming from a finance background. That's also what I originally studied. So what was it about coding that really excited you, that you made that pivot, and what still excites you to this day?
What I have discovered is that when I'm working on a problem in code, I can lose myself for however long it takes, a couple hours, 2 or 3 hours. And then when I come up from it, I'm not drained, I'm really energized. So I think there's something about the problem solving, even sort of the, getting your hands, exercising your hands on the keyboard. It just, for whatever reason, I feel like it's, it's kind of a game with, enough rules to keep you focused, but not so many that it forces you down a certain path. And for whatever reason, I really, really enjoy it.
Nice. I like the analogy of a game. And also it's almost meditative, right? The experience, you can be completely absorbed, and it's kind of a nice balance of, I guess, problem solving, but not painful. Right. So
yeah, exactly. And, I think that there's I know early on when I'd have a problem, I couldn't figure it out. It was just so frustrating. Um, and I'd back away for, weeks at a time on something. But I think as you understand that this is part of the process, like this is what everybody goes through. And you've just got to push through it. And if one path isn't working, try another one, but don't stop trying.
Yeah. There's also a lot of creativity in that, and persistence and mindset. We'll get into that. But and before going into PDM and what you're actually building, also want to just ask you about entrepreneurship, because you're an entrepreneur at heart.
Yes.
And which might make sense, right? Coming from a business background. But maybe you can also share a bit what you've been building on the side, even before PDM, and what you're currently doing, and how that experience has shaped you.
Yeah, well, I've learned probably too many lessons to list here. Some of them really painful, some of them joyful. But I started a software company, Scandy, in 2014. I knew nothing about coding. It was a friend of mine said, somebody should start this business, and if they did, I would buy it, because he was working for a 3D printing company at the time. And I said, sure, why not? Can't be that hard. Little did I know. But so as I said, I knew nothing about coding, but I had a great co-founder. He's become a dear friend, and he's absolutely fearless. He's got incredible talents, but he had a mindset that he could build anything. It's just code. So I think that was a really important lesson that I got. It became one of Scandy's core values: with enough money and attention, anything is possible. I think the other thing that really helped me out, that Scandy probably, we could have done better in a number of different areas that I apply to what I'm doing now, is the need for focus. When you start something, there's a temptation to really do it all. You can have this idea for, I'm going to build this thing and it's going to do, A, B, C, D, and you list all the things that you can do. You want to capture the whole market. But I think the real key is to not boil the ocean, or not try to boil the ocean. Focus on getting one thing right, serving one key customer. So those were kind of the big lessons that I've, the big couple of the big takeaways from starting a software business. So don't
just guess, right? Do your homework, look at what the market wants and needs, and start work backwards from a real demand, I guess, right?
Yeah, but I will admit that I like building the thing, right? So if somebody tells me don't build anything, go do the market research first, I feel one way to do it is to build the smallest thing that somebody can use, and then go out and show it to the world and do the research that way. I think there's a balance. I mean, I know there's the thought process that, you do research before you build anything, but if research isn't your jam, I mean, I think there's got to be some joy in it. If you want to build the thing, build the thing.
For the sake of building. Yeah, because if you only like researching the market, that's also kind of a form of paralysis by analysis, right? It's sometimes you just build those things also on a hunch, right? I find it cool. I see some need, but I don't have it very clear, but I just start building. And even if it's just for my portfolio, my GitHub, or just a learning experience, that's fine too. And sometimes you are lucky and you hit it bigger because you find people that want to consume your stuff, right?
That's right.
Yeah. And I was going to ask you something else. Yeah, you also mentioned there's definitely some confidence with this whole entrepreneurship as well, right? From your previous answer, I heard a little bit of like you have to kind of fake it before you make it. Is
oh yeah, true? No, there's no confidence here. I'm terrified all the time and worried all the time. But I think this goes back to something that I think is important to if we're going to jump into mindset, it's
always
the key understanding is you're always going to feel uncomfortable. Your stuff's never going to feel good enough. You've just got to push through it. You're either going to be uncomfortable about, am I solving this problem the right way? Is anybody going to like it? you've got to launch when the product's, in your heart of hearts, man, this could be so much better. I think that it's less confidence and more an understanding that, just you better enjoy being uncomfortable. You better embrace the suck.
That's awesome. Yeah. And acceptance almost, right? Like you have to come to peace with that fact that the only comfort you're going to have is being uncomfortable. Yeah,
I mean,
sounds really weird, but
the reality is that you're going to be uncomfortable with different things, right? I mean, what I'm uncomfortable with now is going to, the problems that I'm facing now are going to seem really trivial 6 months from now. Right? I mean, the idea that I don't have any tests written in this code yet because I've never written a test yet, right? That's not going to be an issue until I have 1,000 users coming to the website a day, and I've got this big old database, and I don't have any tests to make sure that the database is in the right spot, right? That's something that, doesn't make sense to be, I can be uncomfortable about it now, but it doesn't have any meaning, right? There's if it all fell apart today, nobody would care. 6 months from now, I hope I have a lot of users, and I hope then I'll be really sweating the test issue. Does that make sense?
Makes sense in the sense that worry only on the things that really matter at this moment. And definitely us software engineers get very trapped in that premature optimization thing. But that's actually going to increase your imposter syndrome, will prevent you from launching anything. And then I think that then just exacerbates the thing, right?
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so we can talk mindset till the cows come home, as Julian likes to say. And we would be if he was here. But let's bring it back to actual what you're building. So you are in PDM now, I think for 8-9 weeks already. So you're getting to the end. You've been working on some really cool stuff. So maybe you want to share what that is and what you've learned, and what's that doing for you? Yeah.
So I knew I had to launch something, and I wanted to be something that I was, super interested in. So I'm a, kind of a science nerd, science geek. I've spent, my career in finance around, traditional hydrocarbon energy. And I read a book about a year ago around fusion energy, and really just got super excited about it. I thought it was, really interesting. And then late last year, they achieved ignition for the first time, where a fusion reaction generated more energy output than was put in. And so I just decided, this is something I'm interested in. So I've got, I created a Django app around fusion energy. So it's a simple blog. I'm aggregating articles. I'm using AI to summarize those articles and put them on a site. I'll be creating a job board as well on the site, so that, at some point I'll just scraping the web right now and posting those jobs. And then at some point we'll, potentially, if we get enough traffic, we can allow folks to either advertise or post their own jobs natively there. But those are the plans for it. It's, and my PDM coach was awesome on it. I had the site was originally going to be an aggregator for a bunch of different technologies. Shiny object syndrome. I'm, very distracted. So it's, I also think quantum computing is phenomenally interesting. And so it was going to be sort of originally it was a site to aggregate a bunch of stuff. And, then I kind of did a step back and chatted with Michael on it. It's like, let's make one site smaller, fewer things, just get that out. And so that's what I'm doing.
Did you have to limit the scope as compared to when you come in? Did you very surprised, like what you have now out there versus what you had imagined when you joined? How's that different?
So I think it's a lot simpler than it was when I joined. That being said, I know that it's a lot more manageable, at least right now, than what I had. I like the features that I've built in it better than I did originally, because I didn't necessarily think job board in this industry initially. I didn't think AI to summarize articles when I signed up for this. So yeah, so I would say that that was another thing that I learned, is like, you might have to start over 3 or 4 times, before you get it right. Like, I think, I was working on I think a custom user model that was just giving me all sorts of problems. And, you never like to start over, but sometimes that's the best thing. And, look, it's not like you've wasted a ton of money on materials. It's not like you've half built a house. And that's a beautiful thing about software. Just start over. It's okay.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Like no raw materials, you literally wasting. This is software. It's at most your time, but then if you do it again, you come with that pre-knowledge and you just build it 3 to 5 times faster, because
exactly. And I feel like those reps, like, just creating a new Python project, creating a different app, go ahead and stand up the database again. It's reps in the gym. It's going to make you stronger. It's going to make you better. If you're going to be a Python developer, how many times are you going to do this? Don't feel like, I've already done that 3 times. I don't need to do it again. Well, yeah, you do.
Mm-hmm. Talking about repetition and automation. So the summarizing, you use GPT, right? ChatGPT API.
Yep.
And I think you also adopted ChatGPT quite a bit for your coding, right? You want to
tell
about that really, experience?
Yeah, it's been, where I used to use Stack Overflow. This would be I use ChatGPT now. So I paid the $20 a month for ChatGPT 4. I think it's some of the best money I've ever spent.
Yeah.
And I really have I also have Copilot and VS Code. I know you're more of a Vim guy, but I will admit that that's I love the idea of Vim, but
I will get you on Vim. Don't worry. In 6 months when we have this conversation, I
think I've tried so many times, and it's sort of like, okay, now I've got to stop practicing. Now I've got to get to work, and I open VS Code. So
yeah, it's hard to, especially with a Python developer setup, to change that. Anyway, that's another discussion. Yeah. Okay, cool. And that's the main product you come out of PDM with, right? Or have another one as well?
Oh, I've got, so many more ideas that I want to do. So I live in an area in New Orleans where we have a train. There are like 4 or 5 train crossings right around my house. It's the same train, and sometimes it'll be stuck, sometimes it's moving slow. You never want to try and beat a train, because you always lose, right? But so of course the parish has been working on an app, I think, for 2 years so that people can check in and see when the train is coming. So which is kind of ridiculous that it's taken that long. But so one of the things that I plan to work on next is to just solve a problem locally, right? Is to just take a Raspberry Pi, put a camera on it, use OpenCV to identify, is there a train here? Is there not a train here? And how fast is it moving? So and what direction? And so to be able to, have a simple app where people can go there and say, is a train coming? How fast is it moving? How long is it likely to be blocked? So anyway, we'll see if I ended up building that. I think it's it's a problem that I know that I can solve, that'll impact the however many thousands of people that live in this area. And we'll see if I can hack together a Raspberry Pi with some solar panels and batteries that can just stay outside in the weather and let people know when trains are coming. So
that's awesome. When you build that, we definitely want to have you back and tell us about it.
I'd love to. So yeah.
Awesome. I got a few more questions. Or did you want to say anything else about PDM, how it's helping you tackle those problems more efficiently?
Yeah, so I think that the benefit to PDM is I didn't realize how profound launching something of my own was going to impact my my engagement, right? Because I have built so many things with tutorials. I'll follow it, like, oh, this is cool, and I'll tweak this and I'll tweak that, but you really don't know. You really don't know like what you're doing until you've solved a problem that is meaningful to you. Like I fought with Markdown for like, I don't know, 2 days, right? Trying to get Markdown to work well on my app, right? I never would have done that before, but this was like, wait, this has got to work. And I was uninstalling and reinstalling Markdown libraries and trying to understand why the heck wasn't the bold type coming up. Italics was working fine, but bold wasn't. And finally realized that it was basically that one of the fonts that I had selected didn't have bold.
And that never happens in the tutorial, right?
Right. And the other one the other one that wasn't working, I hadn't downloaded it. And so I thought the problem was in the Markdown was in the Markdown library, and the Markdown library was working fine. But if I hadn't launched this thing, I never would have learned that. And that is one of those little pieces of knowledge that never would have, because it hadn't bit me on the ass. I never had a reason to learn it. And I think that what's great about the PDM program is that it forces you to launch your app, your thing. And the other thing that's key is, I think, having that accountability coach, right? A tutorial doesn't care whether you finish it or not, right? But if you have somebody, and
even ChatGPT for that matter.
Well, I mean, that's correct. And ChatGPT is great, right? It allows me, what it allows me to do is to focus on the really big problems that are really intractable with my coach, as opposed to having 8 to 10 little things that I'm stuck on. So the problems that, I feel like the conversations that we have are, much more around the idea of how we structure this and, what the approach should be, as opposed to, let me help you figure out this one little detail. And Michael's willing to do that. I mean, he's fine going down the rabbit hole, and he's great at it. But what I really feel like it's the iterative process with getting an error, trying to fix it, going to ChatGPT, searching on the web, all of that, just sort of, let's face it, we're all building our own large language models in our heads, right?
Yeah, nice.
That's how we think about it now.
Yeah. Awesome. No, great. Thanks for sharing that, because that's really true. Like with a coach, the accountability, but also the bigger conversations, the how to structure project, design patterns, debugging. So sometimes you do have to go down that rabbit hole, but overall it's also about that 0 to 1, right? Get something launched. And that's very difficult for people, especially when you only do tutorials. Okay, cool. So maybe the questions I had remaining are a bit overlapping, because we did already discuss a lot. So thanks for sharing already so much. But yeah, tips for starting or seasoned developers, entrepreneurs. I feel you mentioned already some really good stuff, but maybe have one more that really I need to get that out there.
Yeah. So I would just say start small and launch. It kind of doesn't matter what you launch. Assume that you're going to have a lot of at-bats and not just one. If you think, I'm launching my one big thing, I don't hate ambition, but I feel like a lot of times that gets in the way, and that can contribute to it. Whereas if you say, I'm going to launch 6 projects in the next 6 months, you're probably going to have more success. Because I think there's definitely an element of, you want more at bats to see how, to see what sticks. So I would say, put it out there.
Yeah, especially when you're starting out, right, and you don't really know what you want yet. Then having many smaller projects is a good way, also for yourself, to kind of filter out what you really like and don't like. Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, and then the mindset question. Already touched upon that, but it's kind of an obvious question in a sense. How important is mindset in all this? I hope people get from now it's pretty important, but of course we want to hear your take on it.
No, it's massively, and that was the, as we were, I was always walking through this, and you're always going to have this idea that it's like that hedonic adaptation, right? That if I just had $1 million, I'd be happy. If I just had, and you have $1 million and you're just as miserable as you were before. I feel like the understanding that you are going to be uncomfortable if you're on this journey, and just like, doesn't mean you're miserable. It just means that understanding that you are constantly going to have to work through issues, work through problems, work through things that you're stuck on, working through the feeling that what you've got isn't good enough. That's always going to be there. So you might as well get comfortable with pushing through that.
Yeah, the obstacle is the way, right? Like
yeah,
Ryan Holiday's
totally
book.
Yeah, no, I've read all of them. I love them. It's
Ryan Holiday's stuff, you mean?
Yeah.
Discipline is a good one as well. Talking about books, what are you reading?
So right now, everything I can about nuclear fusion. I'm in the middle of reading Persuasion by Robert Cialdini.
Nice. Classic. Yeah.
I'm a huge fan of Neal Stephenson and William Gibson for fiction. You mentioned Ryan Holiday, so I read all of his stuff. And then also Michael Lewis and Walter Isaacson for nonfiction, both writers who grew up in New Orleans. So
nice. And do you have a specific title for the letter?
Well, so I guess Neal Stephenson, the one that his most recent one was Termination Shock. And the Agency is the most recent William Gibson book, which I loved. I'm looking forward to Walter Isaacson's. He's coming out with a biography of Elon Musk, I think in September. Wow. So I just pre-ordered that. So yeah.
People always end up buying more books from our podcast.
I look, that's one of my I need to stop because I'm surrounded by bookshelves and I'm literally running out of space. But that's one of the things where I would never not buy a book, right?
So I never save on books. Exactly. Walter Isaacson, the biographies, Steve Jobs, great one as well. And I yet have to read Benjamin Franklin. Well, all his bios are great. But for Stevenson's fiction, Snow Crash, is that one of his most popular books? Is that a good starter, or would you start with the ones you mentioned? They are independent, right?
I think you can jump into any of them because they're all pretty much standalone novels. I mean, I loved Cryptonomicon. That was the first one that kind of really got me into it. So if you're a hacker, probably Snow Crash and Cryptonomicon. So yeah.
Okay, good to know. And I forgot to ask before with what did you say? Fusion, nuclear fusion. Mm-hmm. You got it from a book, but you just learned it from a book, or did you have prior exposure to that as well?
No, it's just I guess I read a review for a company for a book called where is it? It's The Star Builders by Arthur Terrell. It's sort of like just a survey on various companies and approaches in the nuclear fusion field. So I'd read the book and started researching it, and then saw the news from the National Ignition Facility that came out in December that they'd actually achieved it. So all of a sudden, this cool science fiction thing, it might be possible at some point. I mean, we've known that fusion, getting a lot of energy from fusion is possible because you look at the sun, we know that it works. And, we've had some, fission fusion reactions. So we know that, there's a lot of energy to be had there. So anyway, and I think that it also is, driven from my desire to see us solve the problem of climate change, using more about technology and abundance than telling everybody that they can't use their AC or drive cars or stuff like that. I feel like that's a, that's a better message that's more likely to be achieved than telling everybody that they need to get by with less.
Right.
Although we may have to, but I prefer to solve it in a way that generates abundance. So.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, thanks for that extra perspective. So finally, any final shout out, and where can people find you? Where can people connect with you?
So I'm the only social media place that I'm active on is Twitter at Carriere4.
Okay.
And
I'll link that.
Go by the website fusionchronicles.com if you're interested in Fusion. Sign up for the newsletter. I'm going to start pushing that out. Not too much, probably once a month, once every 2 weeks, until I get some more momentum, but would love to have people check out the site.
Yeah, that's your aggregator, the project. That's now live online. People can sign up, right? Or just subscribe.
Yeah, and who knows? In 3 or 4 months, if you're driving through Metairie, Louisiana, you can, maybe there'll be a train app that will tell you how long a train is going to be blocking your path.
You just keep building and going. Awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I enjoy it.
Well, I pretty much enjoyed this conversation, and thanks for sharing. We definitely, I feel we're going to get you back with more stories and projects as you keep up that coding vibe.
I hope so. Thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you, and have a great day.
You too.
We hope you enjoyed this episode. To hear more from us, go to PyBite/friends. That is pybit.es/friends, and receive a free gift just for being a friend of the show.
And to join our thriving Slack community of Python programmers, go to pybytes/community. That's pybit.es/community. We hope to see you there and catch you in the next episode.